ஹலோ.
ஸ்லைடு ஓட்டி பாருங்க, ரன் பண்ணி பாருங்க.
பேசுறது கேக்குதா லக்ஷ்மண்? இப்ப நான் பேசுறது கேக்குதா?
கேக்குது கேக்குது.
ஓகே ஓகே ஓகே. ஓகே. ஹலோ. அப்படியே லைன்ல ஒரு நிமிஷம், ஒரே ஒரு நிமிஷம், அப்படியே இரு. ஓகே, அதான் இருக்கு. ஓகே ஓகே. விஸ்வாசம் இருக்கிற மாதிரி இல்லையே, விஸ்வாசம். ஆ
கேக்குதுங்களா? எல்லாம் கேக்குது சார். எல்லாம் கேக்குது. Shall we start?
So just 2 minutes.
Okay.
Shall we start? Yeah, okay. So good morning to everyone present. I'm Dr. Vijay, Professor of Orthopedics from the Department of Orthopedics in Trichy SRM Medical College, Trichy. First, I would like to thank the orthopedic team of Annapurna Medical College and Hospital for giving me this opportunity to talk about this topic. And a special thanks to Dr. Lakshman and Dr. Shivakumar for having inviting me over here. So getting on to the topic, osteoarthritis. Of course, this is not a very uncommon topic.
Okay, continue.
Should I continue?
Continue.
Audible, right?
Yeah.
So osteoarthritis is not an uncommon term or an uncommon condition which is encountered by any person belonging to the medical fraternity, being a general physician, being an MD, being a general surgeon, or anyone. This osteoarthritis is a very common condition which is encountered by everyone, and it can also be well said as the bread and butter of an orthopedic surgeon. So today, I'm not going into the details of this osteoarthritis, but just the basics to define or to be in terms to just monitor the misjudgment and the misconceptions of osteoarthritis, which are being made by the students, especially the CRIs and also, of course, the junior students. So osteoarthritis, as the term says, osteo means bone, arth means joint, and itis means inflammation, which is well versed with everyone. But though the term itis is an inflammation, I think it is muted. Is it audible? Audible?
Audible.
Yeah. So just as osteoarthritis, osteo means bone, arth means joint, and itis means inflammation. Of course, this is what everyone knows. Itis, though the term itis is added to this condition, we always define osteoarthritis as a degenerative condition. And the reason why we call it a degenerative condition, I'll explain to you in the following slides. Okay, let's go to the slide. So basically, to start with the anatomy of the knee joint is also called as a synovial joint or a modified hinge joint, and especially in older terms, it is also called the inguinal joint. So what constitutes the knee joint? The distal part of the femur and the proximal part of the tibia constitutes the knee joint along with the. So this joint can be divided into 3 compartments. That is the anterior compartment, which comprises the patellofemoral compartment, the medial compartment, which comprises the medial tibial condyle and the proximal tibial condyle. That compartment comprises the lateral femoral condyle. So as I have told you, there are 3 articulations: the medial tibiofemoral, the lateral femoral. Here, some of the students, as soon as they say there is an anterior compartment, they themselves will tend to say there is a posterior compartment, which they should be aware of. Posterior is just a fossa but not a compartment. So you have to be very clear that it is the anterior and the medial and the lateral and not the posterior. Okay. So the joint is mostly stabilized by the following ligaments. The collaterals, that is the lateral collateral and the medial collateral, the cruciate, that is the anterior cruciate ligament and the posterior cruciate ligament, the menisci is also called as the shock absorbers, the ligamentum patellae, and posteriorly we have the oblique popliteal ligament and the arcuate popliteal ligament, and of course, which is encapsulated with a fibrous capsule. And the joint capsule, externally the fibrous capsule, and internally the synovial membrane. Superiorly, it attaches to the femur proximal to the margins and the condyles, and posteriorly encloses the condyles and the intercondylar fossa. Inferiorly, margin to the tibial plateau, except where the tendon of the popliteus crosses the bone. Anteriorly, the quadriceps tendon, patella, and the patellar ligament. After finishing this basics of the anatomy, before to the depth, what actually affects in an osteoarthritis? As a common person or a lay person, or even some of the general practitioner would say that it is the bone that's get affected. That is usually a misnomer. The bone has nothing to do with the osteoarthritis. It is the articular cartilage which acts like a cushion in between the distal femur and the proximal tibia that gets affected in an osteoarthritis. Osteoarthritis, of course, occurs in all the joints of the bone of the human skeletal system. It may be a large, big joint, it may be a small joint, even the interphalangeal joints. Among all these joints, the knee joint is the most common joint, or the most joint we have having the chronicity for osteoarthritis. The reason is because it is the most weight-bearing portion of the entire human body. Next to the knee joint comes the hip joint, and next to the hip joint comes the ankle, and then comes the interphalangeal joints. So let me go into the structures again. So menisci, the menisci are also called as the shock absorbers. That is the lateral menisci and the medial menisci. The cruciate ligaments, they provide a sagittal plane stability. The cruciates are the anterior cruciate ligament, which prevents the anterior subluxation, and the posterior cruciate ligament, which prevents the posterior subluxation. Movements, again, for all the undergraduate students and the CRIs, and also for the aspirants who are going to prepare for the entrance exam. When it comes to the movements of the knee joint, many of us would say that there are two movements, especially the flexion and the extension. Some will go for a movement saying that is abduction and adduction, but please keep it in mind that there is only one movement in the knee joint, and that is flexion. Okay, what you're trying to bring it back is called as a neutral position. So that is flexion and there is no extension. What you're trying to extend is just bringing it back to the neutral position. So the range of movements for the knee joint is from 0 to 130 to 135 degrees. So this picture depicts the range of motion. So full flexion is around from degree, and the distance from this 80 degrees. And while climbing, it is around 70 to 80 degrees. And what we show as a full extension, it's at a neutral position in knee joint. So what are the muscles responsible for the movements of around the knee joint? The flexors of the knee joint are the hamstrings, and the extensors of the knee joint are the quadriceps femoris, the ligamentum patellae, the patellar tendon, and the iliotibial band. And of course, the quadriceps femoris, ligamentum patellae, and patellar tendon are also called as the extensor apparatus of the knee joint. So this is one picture which shows the flexors and extensors of the knee joint. So osteoarthritis, as I have told you, osteoarthritis is a degenerative condition that affects the articular cartilage, or in other terms to say, it is a wear and tear of the articular cartilage that leads to pain in the joint. So how does this articular cartilage erode? For that, we'll have to keep three structures in mind. One is the quadricep muscles, another one is the quadricep tendon, another one is the synovial membrane. So these three structures will determine the stability or the nourishment of our hero, that is the articular cartilage. How? The quadricep muscles has to be in a good tone to keep the quadricep tendon in a good place, and this space would give the synovial membrane a good trigger or a good activity to effuse the right amount of synovial fluid, which is the main nourishment for the articular cartilage. This nourishment, that is the synovial fluid, reaches the articular cartilage in a proper way and in an adequate way. Joint will be in a very good shape and in a very good position. The changes that occurs in the synovial fluid effusion, whether decreased or over, will affect the joint and leads to osteoarthritis. So osteoarthritis is basically divided or classified into two types. One is the primary and the other one is the secondary. Primary, of course, as everyone says, there is no other underlying cause for an osteoarthritis. In a primary case, the osteoarthritis in a primary condition patient has to be at least over age of 50 years, and the patient has to have a good amount of hard working laborer or a good day-to-day wager. Secondary osteoarthritis, of course, irrespective of the age and irrespective of the morphology of the patient, any metabolic conditions or any conditions, traumatic conditions that has caused an immobilization of the patient for a long period of time will go in for the secondary osteoarthritis. So that is why the knee joint is more prone for a primary osteoarthritis, whereas the osteoarthritis of the hip joint is mostly a secondary osteoarthritis. So in the slide, osteoarthritis is by far the most common form of joint disease throughout the world. It is strongly associated with age and extremely common in older people. Some studies estimate that over 80% of the people over 55 years of age have osteoarthritis joint. It mainly affects the hips, knees, spine, head, hands, feet, knees, hips, and being the most commonly affected parts. So osteoarthritis is a degenerative condition of the joint, as I've told you before. It is not primarily an inflammatory disorder, though the term itis is added to the entire word osteoarthritis. It is the end result of biochemical and mechanical insult of the articular cartilage that exceeds the joint's ability to repair itself. So classification, osteoarthritis can be broadly grouped into primary osteoarthritis and secondary osteoarthritis. Primary osteoarthritis, as I've told you, due to wear and tear changes that occur in the articular cartilage and in old age, in which the weight-bearing joints such as the hips and the knees are commonly affected. It is uncommon in non-weight-bearing joints such as the shoulder and the elbow, and obesity is one predisposing factor. Secondary osteoarthritis, arthritis occurring in a joint secondary to a previous occurring disease or a disorder of the joint. It may occur at any age and may involve any joint. Primarily, if the limb is immobilized for a long period of time, the quadriceps muscles loses its tonicity, and if it has lost its tonicity, the synovial membrane is not triggered, and if the synovial membrane is not triggered, the adequate efficient go and causes dehydration of the articular cartilage, and the chronicity of this dehydration will cause eventually result in wear and tear of the cartilage and results in osteoarthritis. So factors associated with the secondary osteoarthritis are congenital malformations of the joint, traumatic alterations of articular surfaces causing articular incongruence, loose bodies in the joint, and deformity of the joint, example, a genu-varum or a genu-valve. Etiology. So as I've told you, the osteoarthritis has no single cause, rather it is due to a variable combination of several risk factors affecting different individuals and different joint signs, which explains its heterogeneity. Risk factors of the osteoarthritis of knee joint. So a systemic predisposition will have genetics, age, gender, and diet and obesity in consideration, whereas the local biomechanical factors are abdominal joint shape and size, previous injuries, and occupational factors. So pathogenesis, an abnormal increase in mechanical stress in some part of the articular surface, increase in the water content and decrease in the proteoglycans in the cartilage. Progressive cartilage destruction leads to softening and fibrillation. As soon as the articular cartilage is destroyed, the underlying subchondral bone is exposed and the subchondral sclerosis and subchondral cysts are seen. Bony projections and new bone formations, that is the osteophytes, will occur within the joint. So this small example will clearly explain how a pain comes from a bone. A simple example, if a patient falls down, has a small trauma, and if he has broken or fractured any particular bone, say if it is the radius or the ulna or the tibia, the pain that he experiences is not due to the broken parts of the bone, but the micro movements or the rubbing of the fractured fragments against each other due to the mobility of the limb causes the pain. So that is the first reason why we immobilize. So when we immobilize, there is no distraction of the fractured fragments, and thus the pain is subsided. Similarly here, as soon as the articular cartilage is eroded, the articular surfaces of the distal femur and the proximal tibia hinges as we flex or as we walk, we try to climb stairs, or while we try to squat, it hinges and it rubs against each other, causing a severe pain. So this really denotes that the pain is not at rest, even if he is in a lying position or even if he is in a sitting position in a chair, but when he attempts to stand up or when he attempts to climb a chair, and especially climb a stair, and especially while walking and squatting, that he experiences severe pain. So this is the diagrammatic representation of bone and the cartilage, and the second one shows the degeneration of the cartilage, and the third one the presence of new bone formations, that is the osteophytes. So grading disease progression, we have two gradings, and one of which is outer bridge classification, which is most commonly used by orthopedic surgeons. It is originally used to describe changes to the articulars of the patella, but now it is most commonly used in all synovial joints. So the grading are: grade 1, softening and swelling of the articular cartilage; grade 2, the fragmentation and fissuring of the articular cartilage affecting an area of less than 0.5 inches. Grade 3, fragmentation and fissuring of the articular cartilage affecting an area greater than 0.5 inches. And grade 4 is cartilage erosion to the bone, the complete erosion of the articular cartilage and exposure of the subchondral bone. So this is one diagrammatic representation showing the erosion and the fragmentation of the articular cartilage. So symptoms for any orthopedician, the only symptom that occurs is the pain. And so for the OA knee also, the major symptom in orthopedics, in osteoarthritis, include pain, the nature and severity, which is very variable depending upon the grade. If it is mild, the patient will experience pain only on long stand, walking, or a long time standing. And if it has involved all the three compartments, the pain would start immediately as the pain attempts to walk itself. And the next symptom will be joint stiffness, particularly a short-lasting stiffness after a period of inactivity. And the next one is reduced functional ability and activities. So what are the main stages of osteoarthritis? In stage 0, osteoarthritis is always asymptomatic. The patient will not experience pain. But if the patient is very clever enough or in a very literate state, the patient will have slight disturbances, especially while using the Indian toilets. And if that disturbance has registered in his or her mind, he would come to an orthopedician at an early time, and we'll see to that the further articular cartilage has not been damaged. The next is the stage 2, which is early or doubtful. It's a mild joint pain, yet there is no serious other symptoms. And stage 3 is a mild to minimal. The pain with activity, difficulty strengthening and bending the joints, and also joint stiffness. And stage 3 is a moderate, frequent pain with movement, stiffness in morning and after sitting. A visible swelling of the joints is possible. And stage 4, a high pain with the joint usage, difficulty activity, daily activities are very difficult, intense stiffness and severe swelling and inflammation. So clinical features, joint line tenderness. While talking about the joint line tenderness, if it is a primary osteoarthritis, the tenderness where we would elicit will be the medial joint line. So in an OA knee, among the 3 compartments, the medial compartment is the first to get affected. And the reason for that is because by nature, the medial convexity or the concavity of the wrist femur and the proximal tibia are much wider and larger to accommodate the 80% of the body weight which flows on the mid-axial line, that is on the medial aspect. The wider the convexity and the concavity is a one cause for this medial aspect affected. Another cause is, though there are equal number of tendons and muscles attached on the medial and on the lateral side, the bulk is much more on the medial aspect than on the lateral aspect. So the bulk, where the bulk of the muscle is much more, it goes for a wasting. Wasting causes the synovial fluid depletion to the articular cartilage, and that in turn results in erosion of the articular cartilage. So these are the reasons why the medial aspect is the first to get affected. So reduced range of movements with pain at the end of the range. Crepitus on the movement of the joint. Crepitus, of course, all students would mistake by trying to state or trying to hear, but in osteoarthritis, the crepitus is filled with the palm of the hand. The weakness and wasting of the muscles acting on the joint, deformity and instability in severe cases. Here we can see the deformity, the genu varus deformity in both the limbs, how to palpate the joint line tenderness and the functional ability. The third picture shows the functional ability of the patient. So radiological features. Radiologically, asymmetrical narrowing of the joint space. This single point, that is asymmetrical narrowing of joint space, is one differentiating point which defines an osteoarthritis from a rheumatoid arthritis. In rheumatoid arthritis, there will be a symmetrical narrowing of the joint space, whereas in osteoarthritis, there will be an asymmetrical narrowing of the joint space. Second one is the subchondral stenosis. Third one is the presence of subchondral cyst, whereas in rheumatoid arthritis, there will be a subchondral osteoporosis, whereas in osteoarthritis, we have a subchondral sclerosis. Osteophytes are at the margin, joint margins, which is absent in rheumatoid arthritis. Loose bodies are found within the joint, also a reason why the pain occurs when flexing. Subluxation and dislocation at the later stage, and deformity of the knee. For a primary osteoarthritis, from a unicompartmental OA knee to a tricompartmental OA knee, the most common or the most encountered deformity that we face will be the genu varus deformity. So this is one X-ray which denotes mild to moderate in the first, which has a normal joint space, a loss of joint space in the second one, and of course in the third one, that is a tricompartmental feature affecting both the all the 3 compartments. So here we can see the differentiate between a normal and osteoarthritic X-ray. You can see the osteophytes, you can see the reduced joint space, and you can see the subchondral sclerosis. All these features are very classical. So next one is the Keller-Lawrence grading scale. So which is also another common grading which is used for osteoarthritis. So in grade 1, it is normal, no features of OA. In grade 2, it is doubtful with minute osteophytes and a doubtful significance. And grade 3, which is subdivided into mild and moderate. In mild, a definite osteophyte is present with a normal joint space. In moderate, there is a moderate joint space reduction. And grade 4, severe joint space reduction. All these are based on the X-ray findings. It's a radiological grading scale. this Killergen and Lawrence grading scale. So management, as an orthopedician or even as a surgeon, one should know how to treat conservatively as well as surgically also. So coming to the management, the principles of management include the following: relief from pain, avoiding overloading of the joints, restoring mobility in the joint, including deformity and deformity correction, and lifestyle modification, including weight reduction. So this is one picture which shows the triangle of management, starting from surgery to advanced surgical interventions, which I will deal in the later slides. So medical management. So when it comes to medical management, we can subdivide it into two types. One is providing a pain relief with oral medications. Another is providing the stability of the joint by improving the tonicity of the quadricep muscles, which is an important aspect of restarting the cycle of maintaining the articular cartilage. Again, while giving a medication, we as orthopedicians, we should be very careful about the comorbid conditions of the patient, because patients coming to us, we are unaware if the patient is diabetic or hypertensive or renal failure or anything. So based upon that, we'll have to choose our analgesics. So most commonly, as youngsters, we used to write a lot of NSAIDs, but I do opt for all patients about the age of 40 or 45 will go for an opioid analgesic, which is really good and which is safe for us also. Rehabilitation. So what is the use of rehabilitation? The main aim of the rehabilitation is to improve the tone of the quadricep muscles, which if improved will again restart the cycle of the normal articular cartilage. So self-management and education programs, combination of supervised exercises and home programs, weight reduction programs, all these things, if started, will have chances of giving an improvised articular cartilage. So these are the few knee exercises what we do: the thigh boosters, the knee strengthening, the knee extension, the quad sits, and the hamstring curls. So other option, once the oral medications and the rehabilitation has failed, the next option what we have left is intra-articular injections. Intra-articular injections, we go for viscoelastic joint injections, which is nothing but hyaluronase. Hyaluronase property involves lubricating the joint so that providing a very good functional mobility of the joint. And hyaluronase also has some anti-inflammatory properties which reduces the pain, and some glucosamine and contractin supplements and intra-articular steroid injections. So most of the practitioners, even in my day-to-day life of practice, when I opt a patient for short-term steroid injection, the main aim of my steroid injection is to reduce the pain in a short duration, so that the patient starts walking or starts doing the exercises again. So that is the main aim of putting a steroid. The steroid is a short-acting, it's a short and a very fast-acting analgesic or anti-inflammatory. So once when given, the patient is relieved of pain, he starts to mobilize. He starts walking and starts to do all the exercise which is required to improve the tonicity of the quadriceps. And once the tonicity of the quadriceps is improved, again we trigger the synovial membrane in a proper way, and the triggering of the synovial membrane will result in a good effusion of the synovial fluid, which will nourish the remaining articular cartilage and thus preventing further erosion of the articular cartilage. So surgical management. Surgery is usually confined to end-stage disease once pain has become refractory to other treatment options. The most preferred surgical options available are the high tibial osteotomy and the total knee replacement. So high tibial osteotomy indications: younger patients with medial unicompartmental osteoarthritis. But in favor of this high tibial osteotomy, we also have a unicondylar replacement, which is now famously being proceeded by all practicing orthopedicians. What is the use of doing this high tibial osteotomy? Once you do this high tibial osteotomy, the entire weight is shifted to the lateral side, and hence the patient will be able to walk freely without pain. So this is one picture which denotes or which shows the high tibial osteotomy procedure. So these are the steps. So based on the amount of deformity, whether it is 20 degrees or 10 degrees, we take the cuts on the medial side, we open the wedge and we give valgus stress, and then we fix it with angle plate or a plate that the anatomy, the mechanical axis is maintained. Replacement indications: asymptomatic knee osteoarthritis or a failed non-operative treatments. When all our modes of treating the patient, whether it's an oral medication, whether it is a rehabilitation, whether it is intra-articular steroid injections, everything has failed and the patient is very, very uncomfortable with the knee joint, then we could go for a total knee replacement. But before going into the total knee replacement, we should keep in mind that the patient should have crossed an age of at least a minimum of 55 years of age, keeping in mind that the processes viability is just 15 or 20 years, after which he will need a knee surgery or a revision knee replacement. Another aspect is that among all the three compartments, a minimum of 2 compartments should have been involved or completely eroded in osteoarthritis before you choose for a total knee replacement. So this is a small picture diagram which represents the total knee replacement. Usually we go for the medial parapatellar, the distal femur cuts, the tibial cuts, the prosthesis is positioned, and then wound closure is done. So these are the procedures of a total knee replacement. And this is one X-ray which shows the femoral and the tibial processes following a total knee replacement. So this is the femoral component, the plastic spacer, and the tibial component. Before I do a total knee replacement, I do have a protocol to be followed. I examine the patient from head to toe, even the ear, the nose, the throat. All 3 swabs will be taken, and I'll see to that even the patient attends the dermatologist as well as a dentist, getting an opinion from them. A dermatologist for any on-site surgical site, any sort of skin lesions, dentist for any oral cavities, and if there is a cavity present, I'll ask the dentist to do the dental procedures and wait for around 10 days, and then I'll proceed with the knee replacement surgery. So as I have told you, why the osteoarthritis is called as a degenerative rather than as an inflammatory. Since it doesn't have a regenerating property, it is called as a degeneration. So once any doctor who finds a drug or finds a method to regenerate the articular cartilage, I think he will be the richest person, next richest person, more than Bill Gates or anyone else in the world. So thank you. So this is the end of my presentation. Any queries? Floor is yours.
No queries.
Yes, person.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Vote of thanks will be delivered by your HOD.
Thank you.
Hi, Jay.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
Dr. Sukumar, HOD of the AMCH department.
Nice meeting you, sir. Nice meeting you.
Much for obliging to deliver this lecture at a very short period.
Thank you, sir.
Lecture, we all enjoyed it. Hope the others also would have enjoyed it.
Thank you, sir.
At this outset, I would like to thank our chairman for having arranged this webinar.
Yes, sir.
And I place on record the appreciation given and the help given by our Dean, MS, and Vice Principal in making this webinar a grand success. Not only that, also I appreciate and thank all the participants, faculties, students, and CRRIs, and thank them once again. Thank you. Sir. Bye.
Thank you.
Jyoti.